Welcome to the Magical Experiments live stream. And tonight we're going to discuss the topic of trying too hard versus taking an approach to magic that is based on the philosophy of do easy and low effort magic. And when I talk about the philosophy of do easy, I'm talking about William S. Burroughs' philosophy of do easy. Um, but the low effort magic part is really my own, is one of my approaches to magic, and we'll discuss that too. But first, let's talk about the problem of trying too hard. I had someone share in the Magical Experiments Facebook group recently, that one of their challenges with magic was trying too hard. And it really got me to thinking about, the classic Star Wars saying, do or do not, there is no try. Right? You're either doing it or you're not doing it. Which really is actually an ontological statement when you think about it, because it's not even just about do or do not, it's about be or don't be. You either are or you aren't. And when we look at magical work and where people are trying too hard, where I see people trying too hard is that they get hung up on the external details of magic. They think, oh, I don't have the right candle or the right incense or the right tools or whatever else. Or I'm not saying the words the right way, or I'm not making the right gestures. And admittedly, it doesn't really help that when you look at how magic is typically discussed or talked about, what is the focus? The focus is on, okay, you have to do the spell this way. You have to do the magical ritual this way. And often this is presented without any real clear explanation of why you have to do things that way. What is the reasoning behind it? Instead, it's just kind of presented as, do the spell this way. Okay, why? I can't tell you why, but just do it that way. Well, that's where trying too hard comes into play, because then suddenly you become very self-conscious and you're really focused on trying to get everything right instead of having the experience. And what I find with a lot of people who practice magic and aren't necessarily getting the results that they want is that they're so focused on the theory and the concept that they're not really engaging the actual practice and the experience. Well, if I am practicing magic, I want to engage the actual experience of the work that I'm doing. And so I don't necessarily need to get things perfectly right. I mean, case in point, I recite the chant for the sphere of art every single day, and I still get a word or two wrong in it. And I've been doing this for over 2 years. Do you think I let that word or two trip me up? No, I focus on the experience, because if I am fully immersed in the experience of doing the magical work, not saying the right word or two isn't going to stop me from being able to do the magical work. The only thing that's going to stop me from doing the magical work is going to be my own self-consciousness, my own limitations around what I'm doing. So when people try too hard, it's usually because they are focused on the external form of magic as opposed to the actual experience of magic. And my advice would really be, stop focusing so much on getting the words or the gestures right or having the exact right tools or whatever else. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, you have to do it exactly this way. You don't. And as you get more experienced with magic and with doing magic, with becoming magic, you'll see that. Because what you'll do is you'll allow yourself to fully immerse into the experience and let the experience guide you. When you're focused on the external form of doing something, it can get to the point where you're trying to control it. Now, let me be clear, there is necessarily a learning curve that's involved with magic and with anything else, where you do need to initially focus on, to some degree, learning those external forms. Like if you're doing martial arts, you can't just go and do martial arts. You have to pay attention. How am I standing? How am I moving my body? If you don't, you can really mess yourself up. So I want to be very clear about that. But the point being that as you get more comfortable with those forms and with what you're doing, and if you don't have the right magical tool on hand, so to speak, improvise. Get comfortable with the experience itself. Pay attention to that, because the experience will guide you. You'll know if you're doing it right or you're doing it wrong, because the experience itself will inform that. What will also help is that as you continue to understand, as you continue to learn and understand how magic works, you're going to come to realize, okay, why am I really using this tool? Like if I'm just going to pretend like this is a wand. Okay, it's not, it's a pen, but let's just pretend for a moment. Okay, if I'm using this wand, what am I really using it for? what what are the guiding principles? Why is this happening? What is the wand really connecting me to? Those are the things you want to be paying attention to, instead of, if I don't flick the wand this way, things are going to go wrong. Okay, flicking the wand one way or another isn't going to really matter all that much in the grand scheme of things. Paying attention to what the wand embodies and what it represents and mediates, and how it allows you to access what it represents, and how that creates an experience in and of itself, is going to take you a lot further in your magical work than when you're getting fixated on how to do exactly the right thing at the right time, because it's got to be perfect. There is no such thing as perfection, not in magical work and not in life. And as soon as you learn to let go of perfection and focus on the experience itself and letting the experience guide you, you'll start to put those external aspects of magic into their proper place, and you'll understand that a lot of it is really just window dressing. Now, let me talk a bit about this concept of do easy and low effort magic and how all this applies. Do easy is a philosophy by William S. Burroughs, where he basically talks about how you just, when you're doing this process of do easy, you're just letting the experience carry you. You're doing things as easily as possible. And you're simplifying what you're doing, and you're focusing on, again, on the experience. So if I'm talking about do easy, the do easy might be that I'm developing a specific routine around what it is that I'm doing. And I pay attention to that routine, and I gradually improve upon it, and it becomes easier and easier to do, because I'm paying attention to the experience of it. And I'm learning, and I'm picking up things. I'm learning how to improve upon the external form of whatever it is that I'm doing. I'm picking up tips and tricks, but I'm also letting the experience itself guide me. And how this applies to low effort magic is that when we are doing magical work, we want to pay attention to how to put the least amount of effort in order to get the most amount of return. Now, when I talk about low effort magic, what I'm really talking about is, here's this desired result that you want to attain. What can you do in the environment around you and in your life and everything else to take that and get it as easily as possible with the least amount of resistance? And this is where a lot of people say, well, I've got to do elaborate rituals. I got to get up, put on the ceremonial robes. I've got to do all this other stuff. I've got to invoke Angel X and Demon Y and so on and so forth. Do you? Do you really? I'm not saying that you can't do that, and maybe that is exactly what you need to do. Fair enough. And let me be clear here, as somebody who works with spirits every single day, I'm not saying don't work with spirits, but what I am really saying is, take a look at each situation and figure out, like, do the math on it and figure out, like, how much effort is really needed. What is going to get you where you want to go? And a good example of this case in point would really be that my approach to low effort magic is based on the fact that in any given environment, there are all, instead of me having to exert a lot of my own energy and effort, I can take what's already there and apply it to the world around me. I, for example, can draw upon, the casual attention of somebody watching this video for a few moments, or the dedicated and focused attention that a person is spending on this video as a form of energy in and of itself that I can apply toward magical workings. And you might say, well, how does that work, Taylor? Well, here's how it works. Even if you're only watching this for a couple seconds, you're still devoting some attention toward it. And by putting attention toward it, what are you doing? You're giving that away. And I can take that and apply it somewhere else. And so that's a good example of just that casual attention and how that can even become a form of energy for your magical workings. But another way it could even be put is take a look at what you're already doing in your environment. Like if you're exercising, for example, you're sweating and you're expending effort and everything else. Why not double dip that and make that and make that into a source of fuel for your actual work? And that's what I do. Like when I'm doing my Qigong exercises or whatever else, I'm paying attention to the chi. I'm focused on the movements, but I'm also taking that experience and I'm applying it forward to whatever other magical work that I'm doing. Or if I'm busy typing away working on my latest book, I'm doing the same thing with that book where I'm writing it. And what's happening is I'm putting all that effort into writing it. At the same time, I'm taking that effort of writing it and I'm moving it forward to something else, towards some magical work. Same thing with video games. And this is a great example because I play video games all the time. I set up a sigil a long time ago that I use to this day. I don't even think about it anymore, but it's just there. When I play a video game and I'm pushing those buttons and solving the puzzles and everything else, all that effort is going toward unblocking my creativity. It's one of my secrets for why I'm so creative and prolific. And a lot of people won't do this kind of stuff because they'll think, well, that's not magic. It is magic. It's magic that's based around understanding how to take what you're already doing and turn it into its own form of momentum. And the same thing applies when you are approaching this from a perspective of whatever else is going on around you. When you, for example, are walking around and let's say you're walking on a street and the lights flicker into being and everything else, you have the night lights on at night because you're walking in the evening. Well, again, there's a source of energy that can be drawn upon and worked with. Why do most people not do it? Oh, maybe because they consider it profane. Maybe because they think whatever. But there are things all around us that we can draw upon and apply, and this is what I mean by low effort magic. Never put more effort into what you want to accomplish than what you need to. This isn't laziness, by the way. This is simply a strategic and tactical understanding of how life works. The people who succeed in life are the people who learn how to create effective processes and routines and streamline everything they do. And they think of everything as a routine and process. And that's really how I think. I mean, if you want an understanding of how I think and how I approach things and why, really, I am so different from so many other people when it comes to magic and life in general, it's because I look at everything as a process. And what I'm always asking myself in the back of my head is, how can I streamline this? How can I improve it? How can I make it easier? How can I get more from it than I'm already getting? And what do I have to do to put the least amount of effort in to get where I want to go? And how can I take everything else that I'm doing and move it forward? How can I ratchet it up so that I'm able to get where I want to go faster with the least amount of effort? Because I'm always looking at things in terms of process and design and how to put everything into the right place at the right time in order to get where I want to go. And this is an approach you're not going to find in most books on magic, because most books on magic are really much more focused on that external formulation. You have to do the ritual this way. You have to invoke the demon this way. You have to evoke the demon this way. You have to do this or that. What about simply saying the demon's name with intent? What about simply laying there and whispering the demon's name in your mind and then saying it louder and louder and louder and louder and louder and louder? Simple process. Can be done. Do you think most people will do it? Probably not. Because they think, oh, you have to have all these other things. You don't necessarily have to have all of those other things. And again, I'm not saying don't do them. I mean, if that's what works for you, if that's the least amount of effort you can put in order to get where you want to go, then do it. But always keep your mind open to the idea of do easy. What is the easiest process of life that you can build into things? And how can you optimize your magical work in such a way that you can get where you want to go effortlessly, or with as little effort as possible? And one good example of this, and I like this, and she's watching the video right now. Hi, Elderia. I hope I said your name right. But I love watching her videos because she does music, to the demons, and that's a perfect example where she's listening to this music and integrating it in to her work with the spirits. Well, that act of listening to the music and playing the music is energy in and of itself, and it can be taken and adapted and applied toward that thing. And of course, she's also, I would assume, drawing upon the attention of people watching her videos, because I mean, right there, that also is another form of fuel. And of course, I'm saying her purposely because she's on here right now chatting with me, but there, as we're talking here. But the point of the fact of the matter is, I really admire that about somebody, is when they're able to take something and effortlessly incorporate it in to their magical work and refine the way they do magical workings. Because at that point, what they've really done is they've come to a fundamental understanding about magic that many people miss out on. And it's this: your magical work is only as complicated as you make it. And when you take everyday things around you and you incorporate it into your magical work, you can get as good results, if not better, than if you go and do an elaborate ritual. The reason why people would do elaborate rituals way back when was because it took a lot of effort to get them to a state of mind where they could just zone out. And that's what happens with a lot of people now. It takes a lot of effort. But as you continue to practice magic, and as you continue to work it and work your process every single day, and yes, you really do have to work it every single day, folks, it gets easier and easier. And it becomes a state of being. And this is what I mean when I talk about the ontological aspect of magic, because the ontological aspect of magic is that state of being where you become the magic, you become the experience, and you let that experience permeate your being and change your identity. And when you let it change your identity, the results come a lot easier, because instead of creating artificial divisions between yourself and what you're working, or even artificial divisions in your life where it's like, okay, we got ritual here and then we've got mundane life here, we make it into our being. We make it into who and what we are, and it's a 24/7 experience throughout the rest of our lives. And this, incidentally, is why if you were to come into my home and you were to go visit my ritual space, you would also see it's the space that I work in, when I'm writing and everything else, because I like to incorporate my magic into every aspect of my life. It's the space I sleep in. It's the space that I'm broadcasting this video from. And yes, exactly, it's Wu Wei, it's just be. It's allowing yourself to become that which you want to manifest. And when you understand that, it transforms how you approach magic completely. So if you're finding yourself trying too hard, take a step back and stop trying. And just start doing. And don't get obsessed about how perfect everything needs to be. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're going to make mistakes. Make it part of the experience and learn from it. All right. Thank you guys for watching tonight. Thanks for the commentary, Elderia. I appreciate it. And I hope you all have a wonderful weekend.